In different corners of the country, terrible rumors began to spread. The graves of wealthy people were mysteriously dug up, and the jewels buried with them disappeared without a trace. The police were at a loss, no trace, no witnesses. Only disturbed graves and broken coffins remained after the criminals. Behind these crimes stood two men, united not only by their desire for wealth but also by their cruel nature. They did not just steal jewels, they collected them, marking each item. They burned the names of the deceased and the cities where they were buried onto wooden plaques. For them, it was a gain, and their collection grew. One day, during another robbery, one of them came across an old, mysterious book among the graves. The book was heavy, wrapped in an ancient leather binding. It looked like an ancient manuscript, its pages covered in black, indecipherable scribbles. Reading it made his heart pound with an inexplicable sense of anxiety, but he could not tear himself away. He convinced himself that these were just legends meant to justify his actions. But the more he delved into the text, the more he felt the pressure of invisible forces, as if something was watching him. The book whispered, forcing him to search for even more secret burials to complete a ritual. An unbearable desire grew in him to uncover more and more of this dark knowledge. But what frightened him most was that he and his companion began to notice unfamiliar eyes watching them. Once, during another grave robbery, they found an unusual burial site. A man laid to rest beneath a tombstone that glowed with an eerie shine in the darkness. Inside lay a corpse, but his face looked incredibly alive, his skin intact. Only one detail stood out: he was clutching a medallion that seemed strangely familiar. They took it, but the further they walked, the more they felt trapped. That evening, their lives changed. The next night, walking along a deserted street, they saw a man approaching them. It was the same man they had unearthed the day before. His eyes burned with a cold, ominous light, and his clothes were still covered in earth. As they neared, his gaze locked onto them, and suddenly, everything around blurred, and a sharp ringing sound shot through their heads. The criminals felt their bodies paralyzed, and it became clear that this was no longer an ordinary person. This was his soul, returned for revenge. The fog thickened, and when they regained their senses, the man had vanished. With wild hearts, they hurried home, believing that the nightmare was behind them. But as they stepped onto the threshold of their apartment, the lights went out. They took out their flashlights and saw traces of earth leading straight to the sofa. There sat the same man, covered in dirt, but no longer in human form. He was a ghost. He stared at them with dark eyes and whispered, "Found you, I found you." A gloomy presence filled the air, and suddenly, their heads spun from another piercing sound that weakened their legs. When they came to, the man had vanished, but his gaze remained in every corner of their minds. Strange things began to happen. Every time one of them closed his eyes, he saw the dark silhouette of this man approaching in the darkness. And at night, they dreamed of their own graves being dug up, their lives stolen from them. At that moment, they realized they had broken some ancient balance, and now they would inevitably pay the price. One of them decided to put everything back in place to return what they had stolen and break their connection with these dark forces. They set off for the last grave that held the ominous medallion. However, as soon as one of them tried to return the jewels, the earth began to swallow his hands, and a bright flash illuminated everything around, and he was no more. From that moment, they became victims of their own horrors. Fear consumed their minds, and every time they closed their eyes, it felt as if they were in their own graves, trapped in an endless cycle of terror, and one day, they simply disappeared. Their apartment remained empty, and on the sofa, among the old wooden plaques, lay one with their own names burned into it.